So relationship. Everybody say relationship is important. So how do we build relationship when we are all working from home? Or not all, but most of us.
Yeah, it's really important because I've been working with some companies who have big sales teams, and first of all they were kind of all frozen because they're like, well, we fly around the country, or we have meetings, or especially hotels, we do walkthroughs, we get people to meet us on site, and so the physicality of the sale is very important, and I think that's really been the challenge here for salespeople, is that the way that they do business, the things that take up their time in the day, like walking someone around the hotel for the umpteenth time that week, doing site visits, etc., it has changed. You can't do that anymore. So I think I think it's really important to remember that people, especially in a competitive world like hotels, people do business with people that they know and people that they like. And so, it's called the fourth wall when on a stage and you need to breach through it and make a connection to people. So I think it's your interview style, it's your how easy you've made it for me to catch up on Zoom. It's the quality of the information that you're going to give me. I would be more likely to take a sales call from someone who had something to offer me besides a sale. So do they have any industry information? Do they have a white paper that their CEO wrote that they could share with me? Everyone is in need of information and insights. And so the salesperson's role here is to build relationships, be open. If there's no news, I'm just ringing you to tell you there's no news. We think it's going to be 60 days away, but it might be 30. Is there anything I can do for you? Like, those types of conversations are really important right now.
Okay. You say the key words, conversation. So Karen, how do communicators or PR professionals build relationship with editors like yourself?
Okay. Well, sometimes our media friends reach out with invites to coffee and lunch and all that. That's really sweet and that's really nice. But when time is lacking, what we really look for is a relationship that's built on professional content co-creation. So I think it's important for our media friends to be able to understand the audience profile of my titles, of all of, we have got 5 different titles, like I said. So, what is the specific audience profile for each title, understand the columns that we have, so that when you reach out to me, you can make a pitch that makes sense for my audience and for the kind of content you're looking for. At this point now, when, lunch and coffees are not possible anyway, it's even all the more important to reach out and talk. So, there's always a chance that you can send an email, but if you do not follow up with a call, it's going to be lost. I like to say that we should work towards a texting relationship, so that eventually you're able to text, your media friends and say that, hey, I've got this news idea. It's going to be great specifically for your audience. Do you want to consider? We can talk through it. So such follow-ups are very important. Not just, this is my release, let me know when you're going to publish it and send me the link, because that's not going to work for us.
Yeah. And I think patience is needed when we build relationship nowadays, because other than not being able to see each other, but more about having that conversation. And sometimes it's so difficult, haven't we all been through that? We pick up the phone to speak to a friend or a colleague, and that saves us like 20 emails back and forth.
Yeah.
So I think it's still, pick up the phone and have a conversation. Now, whether that is part of your behavioral pattern, let's say you're not a call person, you're just a person or so forth. And I think you need to look at what you want to get out of it. Because if I want to get in touch with Karen, but I'm not a call person, but she's a call person, because I need her, I need to work according to her style. So I think it's to really look into that. We've got a very interesting question from Thanos, wonderful Thanos at the Peninsula in Bangkok. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for your inputs. I wish to ask, how much of a must-do will you believe it is for media companies taking over actions to the proper publicity that we want? Okay. Furthermore, what channels do you believe are most effective and what works best? Digital, print, article, videos. So I think maybe he's trying to ask, is it like a partnership, like a media partnership where, you know, if I'm an advertiser, when I get more exposure, do I always have to pay or something like that? What are some of your comments, Karen?
If that's the question, you know, whether you need to pay and be an advertiser in order to get editorial content in my publications, the answer is a straight no. You don't have to, because as a news person, the content that we accept must be newsy, first and foremost. But having said that, I must, point out also that we are not surviving on air and love, you know, so we still need that money. Otherwise, there's not going to be TTG anymore. So we do have a balance, and I'll be very frank, we balance. So for example, if I've got 10 press releases, all on hotel openings, which one will I choose? Right, and especially if all the hotels are pretty much the same. All city hotels, all this many meeting rooms, this many guest rooms, this many restaurants, I will choose the ones that have been more supportive commercially with us. But of course, if your property is a game changer, then obviously I would choose you, even though you are spending zero with us. And that leads me to another point, Al, something that both of you have also mentioned. With SMEs that do not have a specialized comms person, you know, I'm sure they will think that, oh, we're going to miss out on this opportunity, because how do I even know where to start, right? My English is not good, maybe. I don't even know how to articulate my ideas. I think you don't have to worry so much about that. It's more important that you reach out to us, to me, or to the local correspondent or reporter that's in your market, and just say, hi, this is me, I've got this business, I've got this idea, I think it's suitable for your audience, I'm not sure how to get the message out, what do you think? You know, get that conversation going, and very often we will say, okay, let's find a way, you know, to identify what the angle is, and we'll do the interview. You don't have to worry about, you know, getting the interview done in broken English, that's fine. I mean, you know, your job is to be understood, and it's our job to write and to tell the story.
Yeah. And
can I just say, I just want to commend Karen, because I think what she has just said is so honest and so real that you don't often get that. And so I just want to commend her for saying that. I think you're amazing. I'm a little bit more blunt with my clients and trade press. I say to them, they're not there just to serve your requirements when you need them. They are a business too. So if you, and because I'm in the middle, I guess I feel a bit more connected to both sides. But if I'm determining with a client what stories to put out to press, I'm thinking about, if this is a really good story, great. But if this is a mediocre story and they haven't paid any advertising recently, I'm always say to them, you know, it's a two-way street. Mm-hmm. And I think that we've got to stop the corporates from saying all the time, well, I want this and I want that from you and I want that for you. Well, you guys are businesses as well. And you're doing an important piece of work for our industry. It's vital. And so what I say to my clients is that if you want good media in our space, then you have to pay for it. It's not free. So I'm a little bit more blunt than you, Karen, but I think what you said around your decision-making processes is absolutely true for for the region that I'm sitting in, and something that I think everyone in business would understand.
Yeah, and I think it's very important for our colleagues out there. It's not just about promotional stuff, because, you know, journalists can't they are not paid to talk about promotional stuff. They are paid to tell stories.
Yep.
There is nothing leading to that promotion, why you're doing that promotion, because it makes no sense. And we have to respect the journalist integrity and their code of ethics. they are like doctors. If doctors have to heal someone bad, they have to go and heal them. So journalists are trained and paid to maintain their integrity, and we have to respect that. And I think that's where the being humble part, and don't take offense, and always imagine that we have the best intention, is the best way to build relationship. Because it's not that you're worse and then we don't want to cover you. It's not about that. It's just that we just didn't understand what you actually want. We didn't understand your intention. So I think it is about picking up the phone and say, I realized that it wasn't covered. Is there a reason why? Oh, I'm so sorry, I don't really know much about your publication. What is it about? If you can tell me, and I will be able to build something for you. Because believe you me, if you're a trained journalist, you will want something quite exclusive, because they are for the bite. They got this fire in them to chase dreams. So it's like we say, the two-way relationship. I think the partnership is so important, because partnership is commercial, and partnership also transcends commercialism, where it becomes sort of like a professional friendship. Recently, there was an article on Asian journeys, and the journalist really talk about a particular PR professional, and her name is Cynthia, and she's Cynthia Demerer, and she's based in Singapore. And I have to tell you, when you speak to Cynthia, you just love her. You just gotta go, you know what? Because she's honest, she go right, and she's solutions driven. So when she works with editor say, look, that's not what I want, she will turn around and say, hey, actually, what is it that you want? Okay, I know, no problems. But she actually went, in this story, she actually went the extra mile of reading a book that someone published. And then say that, oh, I noticed this and that, and say perhaps this and that, nothing to do with whoever client that she represents.
Yeah.
Because that is part and parcel of it. So the relationship focus has to be there, because we are in an era of humanity, right? So we have to treat Karen like a person. She's a wonderful mom to 2 beautiful boys. Felicity is a wonderful mom to my fairy goddaughter, and I love her very much. So they are human beings. I think sometimes it's okay to say, how are you going today? Oh, okay. Okay. Actually, I've got this intention. Perhaps it's not the right time. When is a good time? I help a little bit. I think if we sort of like tone down the who is on the upper level, who is on the lower level, and we are all the same. We just have job titles to manage complaints. But in essence, we are all the same, just different part of doing that job.
Right.
Just to finish Thanos's question, print, digital, article, videos, what works best at the moment?
I love this question, because so thank you, Thanos, because it's something that I get all the time. And the answer is all of the above. When you're dealing with an integrated strategy, which is my world, we know that we need to go and meet people where they are, how they are. So if I wanted to sell my hotel, I need to convert people not just in their business world, but on their social media feeds. And sometimes they're going to want to read something, and sometimes they're going to want to watch something. So we know from old, marketing research that it takes someone, 4 or 5 interactions with you and your brand just to even kind of consciously click that you even exist. So we need to meet people where they are. That's on all the different channels. They work all differently, but you can also cross-relate them. For example, if I had a thought leadership article that I wrote for my LinkedIn page, I could then cut that up into bite-sized pieces, even quotes, and I could make those into social media posts. Then I could do a video about me speaking about my thought leadership piece, and I can put that on my channels. And before I did all that, I would launch the fact via PR that I was doing a thought leadership piece, ring Karen and say, oh, would you be interested in publishing this? And then I can do, a whole range of different things. So I think the question is, which channel is actually the second question. The first question is, what's your message? And then choose the channels that are relevant for that message and convert that message into the relevant way of storytelling on that channel. So LinkedIn is different to Facebook, different to Twitter, different to magazines, different to your corporate website. It can be the same message, but delivered differently.
Great point. And I also feel that, having conversation, we talked about that before, but also don't assume that if you have 10,000 people on your database, everyone is going to still be there, we say earlier, but also have the same behavioral pattern. I think more often than not, the way we've been collecting data is not that accurate. Where are you based? What region? What age group are you? And then what title are you? And then we start to make assumptions and thinking that, oh, you're in your 50s, so you don't know what TikTok is. Who knows? My grandma might be doing TikTok now when I'm holding this webinar, for all you know. I don't think we can afford those anymore. It is better to just ask the question, how do you consume information?
Yeah.
And now a survey with 10,001 questions, like the time, the energy span, the attention span is so short. Make it simple. Can you get your information that you want from your audience within a 3-question survey? So if there's only 3 questions, then you should ask, how do you consume your news? What irritates you? What motivates you? And I think then this will empower you to really don't worry too much about whether it's safety or concern or whatever, because everybody is worried about safety, yes. But it's, in essence, people want to know where they stand and where you stand and how you tell your story. So if you're still thinking about, I'm going to use one message and going to send out to 10,000 people, which is the old way of doing things, you get old results, if not no results nowadays.
Yeah.
To channel into opportunities. So what are some of the opportunities for us, for our messages to go through, to be understood, and to get what we need?
I'll start, Karen, if that's okay.
Yeah.
I am bringing forward a number of brand transformation projects. So where businesses were thinking about repositioning, refocusing, refreshing, blah, 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 the sort of evolution of brands and positioning, that is happening now. This is your best opportunity in your whole career to actually have the headspace to do this stuff. So that's number one. And that might be a simplification, it might be a moving into different markets, etc. It's also the opportunity to create new product. We've seen an enormous amount of people being really innovative, but really it's about looking around your assets in your company, your database, your staff, the skills, the physical assets, the rooms, the opportunities, and saying, if we weren't a hotel or we weren't this or we weren't that, how could we use this stuff differently? And that's a really creative way of coming up with new products. And we're seeing that happening a lot. And it's very, very exciting. So I think that's one of them. I think also it's an opportunity to do that brand building work. Who are the people that make your company special? Who are they? We don't know. We're all working behind a corporate facade. Tell us about yourselves and your staff, what their skills are, where they've come from, what their cultural backgrounds are, what they're interested in, what their football team is. Really tell those stories. I think the other opportunity from comms is, this is very tactical, but to also rationalize your channels. I see a lot of brands on absolutely every single social media channel that's ever been created, and all the content's rubbish. It's not powerful, it's not impactful. And so I would say that this is a great time, if I was marketing director of some of these hotels, to reduce the number of channels, do them well, prepare content schedules, think about things, commission research, commission white papers, do some interviews, create some videos, and really get into doing some really good quality content. And also the final one for me is around building relationships with media. If anything that you used to say, I don't have the time for anymore, now's the time to do it. Ring up the Karens of the world, have a chat, introduce yourself, tell her what's going on, or share what the challenges are. But I think that's really important. And then just one more, which is really about collaboration. We're very siloed in our work, especially in hotels, which I know is extremely competitive. But I'm wondering whether, if we had to put a bit of a challenge to our hoteliers out there around to work collaboratively with fellow hoteliers, what would that look like? You know, how could we really think about the customer experience differently and beyond our own four walls?
Great. Karen, comments?
Yep. Okay. I saw in the very first poll, or maybe it's not the very first poll, one of the polls that we did, 13% of our respondents said there is a corporate media blackout. While I understand that this could be, you know, it's obviously a corporate decision, but remember that whenever you're not talking, your competitors are. So this is the time to build brand. When, you know, in good times, you had only the chance to, you know, to talk about how great business is and all that, and not enough time to talk about your people. Now is the best time to talk about your people. So I've got a good example with SingX conventions and exhibitions venue in Singapore. On LinkedIn, they have been putting out regular posts about different people in their team, you know, to talk about what they do. And I think that's a very good way of telling people the human side of SingX. And that's what corporates can do, what businesses can do now. So you may not have good news in terms of business to share, but you have got good people in your business to share. So talk about those people, build up the human aspect stories. That's what we look for, at least for TTG. Also look at opportunities to comment right away on major issues. For example, when the Hong Kong government announced that they are subsidizing venue rental for events, Hong Kong Convention Exhibitions Center right away issued a statement saying this is our thoughts. It's very supportive, and right away the media can run with that. I've got an example here in Singapore when the government announced the support scheme for the travel industry. The PR team for the Singapore Hotels Association right away also issued a statement from the chairman. And because this PR agency also represented individual properties and brands, they also helped us to, you know, gather some information and comments from the hotels. And that's what I mean by, you know, co-creation, content co-creation. We want that kind of relationship with you. There's no difference between an editorial staff and a PR professional. The editorial staff is not above the PR professional. We are equal because our job is the same, is to create and to share news. Of course, sometimes your definition of news differs from mine, but there will always be a middle ground that we can meet. So work on that, and I'm sure we can do something that satisfies my audience and satisfy your commercial objectives.
Yeah, totally agree. And also, we are always ready to explain why we don't accept certain things or why we can't cover things. So you just have to trust us on that. And the other advice that I think in terms of opportunity is, if you have within your brands someone with a personality and they are quite comfortable in front of a camera, so that's where your video opportunity is. You know, that person, like Karen said, that person doesn't have to speak perfect English. You know, if you are more comfortable in speaking in Thai or Mandarin or Korean, do that, because that's what subtitles are for. But I think, you know, we always face this, no? As writers, we worry about, we want to make sure that everything that we write is not misunderstood, you know? But on a video, the body language also add another layer of communication excellence. So I think it's something that it is really worth and very appropriate for the current era, where people may not have the time or appetite to read a 500-word article. It can be a combination of that. The copy supports what's in the video or about the video, and the video under 3 minutes get straight to the point and say this is what's happening and so forth. So for example, at the moment we sort of know which countries are open or not, but if I'm a PR professional of hotels, I will be out there if possible and say, this is our street. It's buzzing again, or this is what's happening today. Then you will gain the audience. And then when you're ready to sell, then the audience are used to you because they have built some form of a relationship with you. It's something that is so, so important. Never ever forget the customer journey, like what Felicity has said. You know, that is so important. And it's part of, everyone is a customer because we buy Uniqlo, we buy Chanel or whatever. We all know how that feels like. So when we treat each other with respect and understanding and patience, there is always going to be trial and error. It's not perfection. It's always about excellence and impact. We can only be better once we know better. So it is coming back to that conversation piece with either with your client, with your stakeholders, with your bosses, with your whoever. It is that calm and collected approach of, you know, knowing what your strategy is, knowing what the outcome it is, and a variety of outcomes that you are ready to accept, measure where possible, and then report. Don't press the send button and forget about it. Don't do certain things that is inconveniencing other people because, and I think we're all here to serve someone. You know, so sometimes, you know, if I say, hey, Karen, I can do this, why don't I make it easier for you? If you do that, and then I can do this, but would that work? Karen might say, oh my God, yeah, I like working with you. You know, if I keep telling Karen, can you send me that article when it's out? Sometimes, you know, they just haven't got the time because they produce God knows how many articles a day. So I think we have to be a little bit considerate and have that fair conversation and treat each other nicely. We have about 10 minutes left to our session. I'd like to dedicate that time to look at some of the questions that we have. Should you have further questions, it doesn't end there because as we said earlier, it's about conversation. You will get contact details of Karen, Felicity, and myself. You can either email all of us together or individually, depending on what you feel more comfortable. Go through Site Thailand, but we'll definitely respond to you. Okay, so let's spend 5 minutes, have a look at before we do a summary of today's session. So we've got an anonymous attendee saying we talk about sales and marketing, but we do need to keep our people together first. Absolutely right. What advice be different in internal communication? Okay, so I think it's really about team members' care. I think we talk a little bit about if the bosses have to announce bad news. Unfortunately, nowadays we do get a bit of that. What sort of tone and content would you advise bosses and how they should communicate with their internal stakeholders? Felicity.
Look, it's very important that the bad news comes from the CEO and or the president of the chair, or the chairman. So that's important. The second is that senior people have to go in to these conversations with the assumption that they're letting go of people who earn a lot less money than them. So in that case, it has to be done very empathetically. And also staff need to know that everything has been done to save their job. So the message is, if we have to let people go or we have to tighten our belts, is that we're doing A, B, and C to help us weather the storm. We thought that would get us to the end of February. It didn't. We now know that we're not going to get through March. If things don't improve by April, May, this is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to do. It's got to be very clear, and employees need to know that you've done everything, you're thinking about it, you're open to ideas, so ask for suggestions, be really humble about it, pay people what they're owed, give them send-offs, like do the whole thing. So I think, and also be open and upfront. I've heard of some terrible things that have gone on recently. People just sending a recorded message in a small SME, not fronting up, lying, because it is uncomfortable for everybody. So honesty, what have you done to make sure that this wasn't the first thing you did to let me go? What are you going to do next? And what do you need from me? And I think doing that regularly is really important as well. I mean, you can use video if you've got a large staff members, but ideally the more face-to-face and the more one-on-one you can get, the better.
Yeah. And I think for a lot of, thank you so much for saying that. I think for all the SMEs out there who, you know, may not have the communication structure or training, I would say maybe perhaps spend a bit of money and engage a professional to help you through that process. You will still have to deliver that news because you're talking about people's lives and their livelihoods and the impact of that. And they deserve to know the truth, as much truth as you can share with them, you know, so that when if they have to leave, they leave, but they will still say that, well, I know that you did your best and so forth. We just had a very interesting question that just came in. Any advice on how to communicate or share our content through KOL, which I'm assuming key opinion leaders and bloggers? Obviously in businesses and other than business events, whether it's F&B or any other offerings that we have, we use bloggers. So any advice on that, ladies?
Karen, do you use bloggers? Do you want me to answer this one?
No, we don't.
Okay, so bloggers are one of the, well, in the last 5 to 10 years maybe, have been an emerging media group unto themselves, and many of them have very large audiences. So the only thing I would suggest about bloggers, and it's the same with using influencers, it's a very similar decision-making process. You're looking at who their audience is, and you're also looking at the quality of their writing, of which some of it's not great. But also, so what I do if I'm looking at bloggers, I'm looking at, for example, what audience do they have? And then I will also be very specific about my expectations, especially if in the old world, you know, you might give them a night's accommodation somewhere and then they would write about it, right? So very specific expectations regarding a contra arrangement like that, and being very upfront about when the article will be due, whether you have editorial control over it, and the proof of the audience dissemination. Also with bloggers who might have a blog and then put it on their social, for example, on Facebook or whatever, how much money are they going to boost that post for? So I think if they're fine in some areas, very influential, but just be considerate of their history. If, for example, you know, they've then involved themselves in controversy of whatever type, you will go down with them, and just be very explicit about your requirements.
I agree with that point, and I think in a world of social media, there are a lot of opinion leaders out there, and it's just like when we are interviewing for a job, we try to focus on whether we can work with that person, our boss, our future boss, because if we can't stand their face, then, you know, why start the relationship, right? So it's a little bit the same way. Every blogger, writer, they have an audience, and there is a reason why they follow a particular blogger or writer. Understand why. Why, you know, if I were to interview a blogger, if I want to use their services, I would say, okay, so why do your audience, you know, follow you? If you're not convinced by their unique selling point at that start, then the journey is going to be quite difficult. Again, this is back to your gut feel, because if you're already uncomfortable, because I think birds of the same feathers flock together, their audience will be quite similar with their behavior pattern as well. So I think that, you know, reflect back on your brand essence, and is it your brand essence? Is it part of it that you want to work with bloggers and writers, and then have a targeted list, and then trial and error? You know, don't go for 1 year agreement. I mean, no one goes for that. You can't even get a job for 1 year now. But it's more of, you know, progressive, and develop that relationship and see how. But it's very important for us to, when we work with someone new, is to make sure that at the very start, we label bad behavior. Because when we label bad behavior or misunderstanding, it gives each of us to clarify the situation and build on that relationship. But if you are too polite and diplomatic, then it's going to be quite difficult.
Yeah.
So we've got about 3 minutes left. I just want to turn the attention now to a bit of summary. So to our ladies, what have you learned other than what you've spoken about when it comes to strategy and relationship? Anything that surprised you from our conversation and what the audience have been posting?
I think I think I'll go back to the survey results. It seemed like the same number of people said they had a message strategy, but then they didn't have the content. And I'm sort of concerned about the disconnect between that, you know, but I would like to, you know, understand, I guess, a little bit more about that content strategy. I loved what you said, Elle, the 3 great questions to ask people. How do you consume your news? What annoys you and what motivates you? I love that. I think that's awesome.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Karen, any opinions from you in terms of summary from the session?
Yeah, I think we need to realize that the relationship now is more important than ever, especially now that we are, you know, socially distanced from each other. The way we communicate is a lot more important, especially when there's no face-to-face, right? So use this chance to reach out as a person to another person, understand what the other person is seeking, whether it's a media person or it's a client. Once you have that understanding, it makes communication much easier and more targeted. Yeah, and look, you know, work towards a win-win relationship. You know, so if you know that I, for example, I'm working on a research piece, and you could help with finding a suitable spokesperson to be an opinion leader for that. Do that rather than always saying no, we can't because it's a media blackout. But meanwhile, here's my press release on the property that's opening in fourth quarter.
Yeah, okay, totally understand that. And I think that just in summary of your key points, I think it's very important to get to know your audience again, guys, you know, for our audience, get to know your audience, listen, and then hopefully you can be solutions driven. But I think most importantly, you also need to balance the overthinking with the on-time action, because I think nowadays you only have 48 hours to execute some messaging. And if you don't have the internal skill set, engage one that can help you, that you feel most comfortable with. In terms of relationship, don't just stick to emails, have conversation. With anyone. If a client were to disagree, it is okay. They have every right to disagree because it doesn't suit them. It's got nothing wrong with you or them. It's just a particular message. You guys are just not the right match. And then find the right match, and hopefully that will recover again. So once again, thank you so much, Felicity and Karen, for joining us, and to our audience, thank you so much for your participation. I think when it comes to communication, I often take a lead from motion picture composer. His name is John Power. He says communication works for those who work at it. So we have to keep working at it. I know the journey seems long, but if it's something that you're born to do and you really want to do, you will be able to do it. So I'd like to hand this session over back to Site Thailand. They'd like to do a survey. The speakers and I, we're gonna switch off our camera and microphone now. Thank you so much. Again, you will get our email address or, you know, even mobile numbers if you want to call us. But appreciate if you participate in the survey about this session so we can develop better content for you. Once again, thank you very much and keep safe.
Thank you, everybody. I wish you
bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Elle.
Take care. Stay safe. Yeah. Bye-bye.